They call it the Blue Danube. It runs through the center of Budapest, the capital of Hungary. Budapest with 2.2 million people in it. The country of Hungary boasts 11 million people. It borders with 4 countries, with Austria, Yugoslavia, Czechoslovakia, and last but not least, the Soviet Union. It's been a long time since a major motor race has come to Hungary. In fact, it was around 50 years ago that the great Nuvolari won here, but not in this racetrack. Only 6 months ago, these were just plain fields. There was no racetrack, there was no administration buildings or pits. The Hungarians have done a remarkable job. The man that brought this Grand Prix here is Bernie Ecclestone. He's the president of the Formula One Constructors Association, and John Bisignano had the opportunity of asking him how this Grand Prix came to Hungary.
Bernie, everyone seems very impressed with the situation here, both in Hungary and at the track. Were there a lot of extra problems in organizing this Grand Prix over another event?
You mean more than we get in the States?
Yes, more than you get in the States.
No, it was easy.
But coming to an Eastern Bloc country, Bernie, how did you ever really pull it off?
Not too difficult, really. The people know what they want. They think we can give it to them, which we have, and they've done all the nice things that we asked them to do.
Why did they decide to have a Grand Prix? What was their purpose?
Well, I think that they think it's a good public relations exercise and the amount of exposure they're going to get, obviously, throughout the world is incredible. So it shows the rest of the world what it's like in the Eastern Bloc.
Are you pleasantly surprised about Budapest and the Hungarian people and so forth?
Yes, I would say in one word, definitely, because it seems a very, very pleasant place, good atmosphere, and people are only too willing to go out their way and to help you.
Your first time behind the Iron Curtain, is it a favorable impression for you?
Yeah, I'm very impressed with the country. All the people are very friendly, and I think it's certainly, by all accounts, talking to Hungarians, it's one of the most liberal countries behind the Iron Curtain.
And what's your impressions of Budapest and the Hungarian people?
Well, we sat in a restaurant last night, and somehow or other I didn't imagine there'd be such a place in, you know, behind the Iron Curtain. It was just like any city in Europe.
What about the country itself? Have you had time to look around anything else besides the track?
Yeah, I'm rather impressed, actually, because this doesn't really appear to be an Eastern country, really. It's a nice country and nice people, very nice people. And Budapest, actually, is a beautiful city. Very, very, very nice.
This does seem a rather unusual place to have a Grand Prix. After all, these Formula One cars cost about $1 million each. And the average salary per month for a Hungarian is only about $100. Quite a discrepancy. Well, capitalism has certainly come to the Eastern Bloc. And we'll be right back with more for the Grand Prix of Hungary in just a moment. This pre-race report is being brought to you by Ford and your local Ford dealer. Have you driven a Ford lately? The kind of speeds and horsepower that the Hungarians will be looking at for the first time over here, in fact, is pretty remarkable. If you consider a 1.5-litre engine producing more than 1,000 brake horsepower, it is impressive. Now, that's all come about since the late 70s, when the turbocharged engine came into Grand Prix racing. Since then, certainly, it has developed. But how does that work? Well, John Bisignano is here to tell us how.
We refer to turbocharging so much during a broadcast that it would be nice to have a simple explanation that everyone can understand. I'll try my best. Think of it as nothing but an air pump. The turbocharger does nothing but supply extra air to the combustion chamber. You know, like when you were working on an old campfire and you wave a magazine at the flame. What you're doing is adding extra oxygen to that flame for a bigger flame. Think of the old blacksmith bellows when he was pumping up and down, injecting that air into the fire. What you do is you get a bigger bang, and that's simply what a turbocharger does. The air is brought in through the intake trumpet down into the compressor. Now, the compressor is actually driven by the turbo fans that are moved by the exhaust coming out of the engine. So you have the exhaust turning the fan, which is turning the compressor, and that is making the air more dense, compressing it down to maybe 1, 2, 3, even 5 times the normal atmosphere. Now, by doing that, you actually heat up the air, so it has to go through the intercooler before it's brought into the combustion chamber. And that's where the bigger bang happens. What you've done, you've added 2, 3, up to 5 times the normal atmosphere, mixed with the fuel and ignition. Bang, a big bang, much bigger than if you were going to use the atmosphere available at the circuit. Now, this is the Ford V6 approach with twin turbos, 1 turbo on each side of the motor. Now, the driver can actually regulate the amount of turbo boost from the cockpit during the race. If he needs a little extra spurt down the straightaway, or if he's trying to get by someone, you might see him turning up the boost, and we will refer to that as turning up the boost. But what that does is eat up extra fuel. So it has to be a very calculated measure.
Well, major car manufacturers came into Formula One motor racing perhaps because of the turbo, to show their expertise in this modern way of saving fuel but producing power. Big name manufacturers, in fact 7 of them at one time were involved. Names like BMW and Porsche, Ford and Alfa Romeo, Ferrari and Renault. All of these people, including Honda, have demonstrated this in these last few years. But in fact, horsepower has even gone too high now. And the governing body have suggested that this formula that exists today and has had an incredible capital investment put into it will shortly perhaps become obsolete. Maybe in 2 or 3 short years they'll be bringing in a 3.5 normally aspirated engine to go along with an even smaller cubic capacity turbocharged engine. We'll be back for more of this Grand Prix of Hungary after this. This pre-race report has been brought to you by Ford and your local Ford dealer. Have you driven a Ford lately? We're not in the Soviet Union, but we could well have been. Because when Foka and Bernie Ecclestone decided to have a race in the Eastern Bloc countries, Russia was the first choice. However, we're here in Hungary, which certainly was the second choice, and they've done very well. In a matter of months, they've created an amazing racetrack. It's slow in speed and very tight in corners, and that may well be the problem that we will see in this Grand Prix of Hungary. I think that we're going to see a lot of front wings being damaged because the cars are going to close up amazingly in these short turns with double apexes and steep S-bends. So look out for that. I think you're going to see quite a lot of traffic and contact too. Well, working with me today and along ESPN, of course, is Larry Newbert. Larry, how do you see the race through your eyes?
Well, Jackie, not only is it tight, but the tire adhesion here is unlike any other racetrack we've seen this year. More on that in just a second, but there are a couple of other factors. Everybody knows that the Williams have been the fastest cars all year long, but it's not really just pure speed that has made the difference. They have been a very fuel economical fast, and that is what has won races for them. And one other factor, we've seen it the last 2 years in McLaren's reliability. These cars are so complex and so scientifically advanced, it is absolutely astounding that anyone can finish half the races. And these guys are finishing almost every single time out.
Well, of course, that's the story we have here, with Nigel Mansell leading the World Championship going into this race and the Williams Honda team leading the Constructors World Championship. To talk more about what's going to happen mechanically in this race, we have John Bisignano down in the pits.
Thank you, Jackie. Well, of course, all the mechanics of every race car only have one contact with the track, and that's where those 4 black patches of the racing tire actually meets the road. In talking to both the Pirelli and Goodyear tire managers, right now they're only expecting 1 tire stop for all of their teams. But it's not really known for sure because we've never run here in Hungary before, and the final decision will be down to the driver himself whether or not to come in for new rubber. You might also see something very different in that only the rear tires may be changed. This is because the rear tires are heating up to maximum temperature due to wheel spin coming out of the slow corners. But because of the very smooth new track surface, the front tires are not really making it up to maximum temperature and therefore showing very little wear. Now let's take a look at the starting grid. Scoring his 13th pole position, it's Ayrton Senna in the Lotus Renault. Next to him, Nelson Piquet in the Williams Honda. The current world champion, Alain Prost, in third, with the current leader in the world championship, Nigel Mansell, fourth. Fifth, Keke Rosberg, with only 6 Grand Prix left in his career. And next to him, Patrick Tambay in 6th. That's the best qualifying position so far this year for the USA Carl Haas team. In the Ferrari, Stefan Johansson, 7th position. The Earl of Dumfries, Johnny Dumfries, in 8th. Rene Arnoux in the Ligier, 10th. Alan Jones in the 2nd Haas Ford-powered car. In the Benetton, it's Berger taking the 11th position, and Philippe Alliot in his 2nd Grand Prix this year in 12th space. Fabi in the 2nd Benetton in 13th, Patrese in the low-slung Brabham 14th, Alboreto in the 2nd Ferrari 15th, Brundle in Data General Tyrrell 16th, Nannini 17th, 18th Streif, 19th Warwick, 20th De Cesaris. The Aero teammates next to one another in 21st and 22nd, Danner and Boutsen. 23rd is Genzani, 24th, Palmer, 25, Hoop Rottengatter, and in 26th position, Berg, the Canadian. We'll be back for the start after this message. The Hungarian Grand Prix is brought to you by the Diners Club card from Citicorp. Welcome to the club. And by Budweiser. Beechwood aged for that clean, crisp taste. This Bud's for you. And by BF Goodrich TA radials, built for you to take on the road.
Major Grand Prix has taken place. 206,000 people have turned out today, they tell us, the organisers. So therefore, it's going to be quite an exciting exercise. The track itself, brand new. Circuit length is just a little over 2.4 miles. The number of turns are 20, 12 to the right and 8 to the left. Maximum speed attained is 185 miles an hour in practice. That will not probably be attained today. The tyres are going to be a little bit of a problem. I'll go into that later, but we could see as many as 3 or 4 tyre changes in this race. John Bisignano is down in the pits, so from our position in the commentary, I'll send you down to John Bisignano, who will tell us what's happening, the latest from the pits.
Amazingly calm down here. I've never seen a grid so well prepared. There's very little problems. Of course, Prost had a huge problem. He only got out of the pits into turn 2 before the motor stopped, and he will be starting in the spare car. They say the spare car has been running throughout the weekend and it's set up perfectly for him, but that's always a disturbing thing to a driver. Going a little bit further down the grid, there was absolutely no problems except for poor old Alan Berg's exhaust was falling off, and they were trying to do a bit of an Osella patch job way back in the back. Back to you, Jackie. Everyone looks down here like it's going to be a very clean start.
Well, they're just about ready to roll off on this pace lap. Larry Newber's with me in the commentary position.
Jackie, just before the final reconnaissance lap, there you see the current point standings. Nigel Mansell, of course, in the strength of those 4 wins so far this year, leads the World Championship point standings. And just a comment about where we are today, you can't underscore enough how significant and how important a day to all auto racing this is. The first time in the modern history of Formula One racing that we have held a race in a communist bloc country, and the country has really turned out not only in force, but they've been very hospitable. A very important week. It's been an enjoyable weekend. There is a tremendously large throng of people here. They tell us 200,000 people. It seems like more than that.
Well, the cars are now, of course, in the warm-up lap. They are going around to find themselves the way, warm their tires up, transmissions and everything else. There has been a bit of trouble, as John Bisignano said, that Alain Prost went only to 2 corners, and then suddenly the car stopped, probably with electrical troubles. Just a couple of things here. In the warm-up this morning, because there is half-an-hour warm-up in the morning, Senna's engine blew, and that had to be changed. Rene Arnoux had an engine that blew. Christian Danner found the steering much too heavy. He's put a lower ratio steering rack in to try and make it easier because this is going to be a very physically tiring race. Poor Alan Berg, the young Canadian, seems to be having plagues of problems. I mean, his exhaust is falling off at the starting grid. Twice the car has stuck out on the racetrack during the weekend. He's had very little practice. Those are the kind of problems that they've had. The good news is, of course, the spirit, as Larry said, is amazing. We've got the Prime Minister of Hungary come along to see this event. Really, they have made us very welcome, Larry.
Okay, just a few comments here about the course to give you an idea what to look for while you're watching the race. If you can imagine the country, or rather the continent, rather, of South America upside down and on top of a large paper clip, that's basically the shape of this course. It's kind of hard to grasp. It's unlike any shape that we've seen any other race course. Now, the countryside here is somewhat reminiscent of Laguna Seca, or kind of like Jerez, where we saw the Formula One race in Spain earlier this year. But we're down inside of a valley. The track actually goes a little bit uphill on both the right and the left side as we look out onto it, and that's causing some very unusual tire temperatures and causing the tires to react differently. But it's kind of a difficult track to really grasp. Keep in mind that whenever you see a camera angle, you're always going to be looking from the outside. We run clockwise here. In other words, the cars are running from right to left, and whenever you see any shot, you're always on basically the outside, whether or not the cars are turning right or to the left. So keep that in mind. That'll keep this track, this 2.4 miles, in perspective for you.
Okay, so the cars are now coming up onto the final grid. The first corner is a third-gear corner. Now, there could be problems. We've seen several incidents this year. In the last race in the German Grand Prix, there was a first corner incident. Brands Hatch before that had another first corner incident. It is not beyond the possibility there'll be a coming together here also, so do be prepared for that.
Remember, it's like a paper clip. It's a 180-degree corner as they come down the end of the straightaway. It's about a quarter of a mile in length.
Okay, the back end of the grid now getting in place. When everybody comes to a stop, the red light will go on in the top left-hand corner of your screen.
Long way, Jackie.
Well, it's very hot, 90 degrees. They won't want to wait. Those cars at the back of the medical ones, the red light is on. They're ready for a green, and they're off. Senna makes a fantastic start. So does Mansell. Mansell has come alongside PK. Alan Prost is there. Jackie Ross from the two Williams, and Mansell takes it in the inside. So first is Senna, second is Mansell, third is PK. The cars seem to have got round that first corner. It's a long corner. Very slowly, Alan Berg is leaving the pit. Looks like he's in the wrong gear, but Ayrton Senna, the bright yellow helmet there in the GPS Lotus with the Renault engine, he was on pole position, fastest in practice. The two Williams cars hugging in behind there. It looks like that's going to be a story to see who gets away there. Then there's the two McLaren cars.
One of the McLarens has dropped way back. It's Rosberg. He's dropped back to about 7th or 8th position on the grid already, and they were quick this morning, although, as Jackie told you, Alain's car broke down, so this is not the car that was the fastest one in practice this AM.
It looks like it's a Ferrari up there right now in...
One of the Haas cars is 4th, Jackie, and they've qualified well here this weekend in Hungary.
Well, that'll be Patrick Tambay, who will be in 4th position. The Ford power coming into its own. It's a very torquey circuit. You don't need maximum boost or maximum power. You need an engine that responds well, and it surely does. But look at the mark that Senna has taken on this first lap. He's not three-quarters way round it yet, and he's certainly got breathing space. Alain Prost is pressing Patrick Tambay, who right now is in 4th position. Prost nearly gets it off the road. Alan Jones is tucked in behind him in the other Haas Ford car. Carl Haas over here, of course, of Indy fame, with Paul Newman. They run that team. This is the final corner of the first lap. Ayrton Senna leads clearly out of that corner, accelerating very nicely. Ayrton Senna comes through. In second position, Nigel Mansell, then PK, then Tambay, then Prost, then Jones, then Dumfries, then Reddy Arnoux, then Jackie Rosberg, Johansson, Patrese, and Adio in the other DJ. It looks like Arnoux was putting a little bit of pressure on there. We could see things happening for him.
When Ayrton Senna qualified on the pole here, it was the 104th career pole for the Lotus chassis, which moved them ahead of Ferrari. Remember, they had tied Ferrari in the last race that Ayrton had qualified on the pole, and now there it is. The Lotus car is the new #1 pole setter in Formula One history.
Not only only that, but Alain Prost has now started in 100 Grand Prix, something that I've never done. He's been trying to beat my record of Grand Prix victories within the 99 that I completed. Well, he's not going to get that one, but he now has the round 100, which is very nice. Ayrton Senna in the GPS Lotus takes
Somebody's
a
off there
comfortable
at the
lead.
top. Didn't see who that was, but he got back on without any problem. By the way, this course, if you're an experienced Formula One watcher, you thought, boy, that took a long time to get around. Yeah, this is a relatively slow course. Now, the average speed was about 100 miles an hour, and Alan Berg is coming into the pits. We commented earlier that Alan had started very slowly. There it is. You can see
Turbo.
Turbo or engine or something, probably a turbocharger with all that smoke. But the average speed, Senna just barely peaked at 100 miles an hour. So, yeah, we got the possibility here that this race might be called after 2 hours rather than the prescribed number of laps. Remember, that is a rule in Formula One. No race will run longer than 2 hours. Senna has had things his own way up to this point.
They're pushing it back in the garage. Unfortunately, the Canadian Berg is out of the Hungarian Grand Prix.
Jackie, while we were listening to John, Nelson Piquet has moved into the runner-up position. He got to the inside of teammate Nigel Mansell. There they go. Tambay holds on to fourth. A great performance by Patrick Tambay. We told you both of the Ford cars going well, but Nigel Mansell and Ayrton Senna and Nelson Piquet, who join, of course, Alain Prost in going for this year's championship, are running up front.
Rottengat is in the pits also, and so is one of the Ligier cars. It is in fact Alliot. Is it Alliot or is in fact, no, it's René Arnoux, their leader, came into the pits, so René Arnoux certainly was in the pits. John Bisignano, do you have it over there?
Very quick pit stop, Jackie, by the Ligier team here, only 7 seconds on my clock, but they changed all 4 tires, and he's back out on the track.
Well, for him to come in this early, there must have been a problem, because clearly it wasn't because of tire temperatures. The story may well be in this Grand Prix that we could have 3 or even 4 pit stops for tires. This would be something of a record. Last year in the Australian Grand Prix, Keke Rosberg stopped 3 times, and of course in the Grand Prix of Germany, I think last week, also Nelson Piquet stopped quite a few times, but it could be as many as 4. Goodyear of course, it's a controlled condition. The coefficient of drag here on the road surface is very low. It's a very slick surface. It's a brand new surface here in Hungary, and it'll take about a year for it to come right. It'll have to winter well, and then it'll be a more adhesive surface. We're at the Grand Prix of Hungary. Ayrton Senna is leading, Nelson Piquet is second, and Nigel Mansell's holding up the traffic in third place, and we'll be right back. The Grand Prix of Hungary, and you see the 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th and 10th men coming through there. It's an extremely tight pack. There is very little space for passing around this track. He doesn't have to worry because Ayrton Senna's opened up a considerable cushion of lead here. He's about 2.6 seconds ahead, and that is extremely useful at this stage. The pack behind him, of course, Piquet has a bit of space, then comes Nigel Mansell, and then it seems that the whole world is after them because there they cannot get through those tight corners, getting any speed at all to get through an acceleration unless somebody makes a major error by missing a gear or missing an apex. It clearly will not be easy for anyone to pass. Look at Alain Prost trying to get round Patrick Tambay. Alan Jones is tucked behind him. All of those cars really in close company.
Here they are, Jackie. It's Tambay, as you mentioned, in 4th. Prost is 5th. Alan Jones, Tambay's teammate, is in 6th position. Johnny Dumfries, the teammate of that man, is in 7th position. Is Keke Rosberg. 9th is Stefan Johansson, the first Ferrari to show into the top 10. And 10th is Ricardo Patrese, whose tremendous straightaway speeds just didn't do him that much good this weekend here in Budapest with 23rd of this 2.4-mile course.
Well, it's interesting to note that Ayrton Senna went round in that last lap in 1 minute 35.77 seconds. Compare that with 1 minute 29 seconds on his pole position, and you recognize there's a 6-second a lap deficit from what he was able to do in qualifying. He is clearly, and look what's happened. Alain Prost has got past the car of Patrick Tambay. So Alain Prost gets himself into contention. That puts him into 4th place. Now let's see if he can make ground now in Nigel Mansell. The big question is how the tyre war is going to go here. At the present time, the front runners are definitely on Goodyear tyres, but some of them have chosen different tyres. You see the fastest lap so far has been put up by Piquet at 1:35.237. That is compared with the 7.7 achieved by Senna on that last lap that I spoke of. So the lap times are about the same. And it seems to me that Piquet is closing up a little bit on Ayrton Senna.
Also, if you've been paying attention all year following Formula One, you know how much of a factor fuel has been. And there's been a spin at Patrese. Ricardo Patrese has lost control. The Haas cars go by us here in the front stretch. They are side by side.
The problem is that the car is jacked up on the curb.
On the curb, yeah.
The car is not on the ground, and the tires are dug in. He's going to have it pushed away. If the car is a hazard in safety terms, he is allowed to be pushed. But if it is, oh, he's getting out the car. He is getting out the car. He's facing the wrong way. He's giving up. I think I would try to get my car back on the road and try to get running again. But look, Ayrton Senna, the man in the lead, is being crowded a wee bit by Nelson Piquet now.
You know, Jackie, Ricardo was really on that accelerator, and maybe he tagged a valve or something, or he did something to that engine when he's sitting there revving and trying to get away. And there is Andrea De Cesaris, who had that great performance the first race of the year in Brazil, and he's never really been able to come up and match that since. He is one of the early retirees here.
Well, Senna is still plundering on here. He wants to win. He, of course, is in the World Championship race with a chance of doing it. He's lying 3rd at the present time with 42 points. He's only 2 points behind Alain Prost, who's in 2nd position, and he is within a win of Nigel Mansell.
Piquet is definitely moving in.
Piquet is a highly intelligent driver with a lot more experience than Ayrton Senna. But it doesn't seem that Alain Prost is making much of an influence on Nigel Mansell. But Patrick Tambay has dropped right back. Patrick Tambay has now been passed by Alan Jones, and he is definitely going slower. So Patrick Tambay, who was up there to begin with in 4th position, is steadily dropping back.
To give you a little more depth of how unusual this surface was to tires this week, in qualifying, many of the teams found it to their benefit to use race tires to qualify on. It was only not until late yesterday afternoon, really, that Senna proved to everybody that still the qualifying tires were the best way to go. As we mentioned, he was the only guy who peaked at 100 miles an hour for a qualifying run, but the racing surface was very unusual. It is not coming up. I was talking to Jackie Oliver, who owns the Arrows cars earlier, Jackie. He said the surface was not coming up, but it is not completely cured yet either. It's still a green surface, and they're seeing it beginning to sink, and the surface is kind of moving a little bit. Now, there's a lot of dust and debris. It's a very sandy area, despite the fact that we're very much inland. The ground around here is like sand, and it keeps getting on the racetrack. That seems to be just a little abrasive to the racetrack, but the track is moving. It's almost a dynamic speedway.
Well, the groove itself is where you've really got to be, and if you're out of that groove, it's really like running on marbles. Look how close Piquet is getting. Piquet is stalking his man. He's in a position where I think you're going to see some fireworks in just a few laps. Now we've got something happening in the pits. We're looking down at the Arrows pit. I noticed that Christian Danner is in the pits. He's getting a wheel change, but there's something else happening.
Danner's in the pits, as you can see, Jackie. They're having a little bit of trouble there on that left front. Team managers are in there trying to figure out exactly what the problem is, communicating with the driver. Danner wants to leave the pits, but they're holding him in. It's a very frustrating time for the young German driver. He's sitting there revving the RPMs out of the BMW, but still it's a lengthy pit stop. There is a problem beyond tires. Back to you, Jackie. It looks like it's going to be a little bit of a tough stop here for Christian Danner.
Okay, so we're back to a tough business for Ayrton Senna, because is he under pressure? Two Brazilians lying first and second right now as we look from our commentary position. Christian Danner's USF&G Barclay Arrow is being pushed into the garage area. Whether it's going to be retired completely or whether it's going to be worked on is another matter.
Jackie, it seems like the best place to pass, they still haven't gotten Patrici's car off, is on the front stretch where they're coming right now. Let's see if Nelson has made this turn, the final 20th turn on this course, a good one, because if he has, he can get behind Ayrton's slipstream and maybe get by. Not this lap, or maybe. Can he get him on the high side? Oh, what a tough place to try.
Well, young Mr. Senna has never been famous for opening the door, but he certainly didn't allow anybody to sneak through there. But, you know, Piquet has lots of time.
Yeah.
Before the start of this race, I chose Nelson Piquet and Alain Prost to be the potential winners here, and I don't think I'll be far wrong at the end of the race, depending, of course, on mechanical happenings.
Jackie, you can see almost grooves developing in the track. You can see it all the way around. It's beginning to look somewhat like a dirt track. You can tell it's a new surface. Again, it's not breaking up, but it's moving now. Piquet, does he have room this time? Can he outbrake Ayrton? No, not quite.
And that'll cost him a little bit of time.
Yeah.
Ayrton will take a little advantage of him because there are no free lunches. If you try and use a bit of virgin territory, it usually costs you a little bit. It did cost him a little bit.
Nannini comes into the pits as we watch this battle up front. You can see also that third place is tightening up. Prost has moved in on Nigel Mansell as they are battling for third position. Watch for them in the background. There you see him just at the far right of your screen, and you can see, as Jackie pointed out, how that one corner where Nelson Piquet had to jump on the brakes really put him behind a little bit. Oh, we've got another. No, they're still trying to get Patrici's car out. Oh, Jackie, they've got that car pushed right into the racetrack.
It looked like somebody else may have spun off there and come in contact with these people. I don't know what's happening, but keep in mind this is the first Grand Prix that's been held here, and these people are brand new. They have not got the experience of looking after a racetrack in the traditional sense. The marshals are brand new. The flag marshals are brand new. The rumor was that they were having one flag marshal at each stand from the Imola racetrack to oversee the Hungarians because of their lack of experience. Okay, we're at the Grand Prix of Hungary. This is Jackie Stewart along with Larry Newber and John Bisignano. We'll be right back after this. He's just done it. Nelson Piquet went underneath Ayrton Senna at the end of the straight, going into the third gear corner, and here you see the replay. He did it very convincingly. Senna didn't think he would have the marbles to do it, but in fact he just very convincingly went up the inside. There was no question of Senna being able to close the door, and keep in mind, when your own Brazilian world champion is doing that kind of thing to you, it's not like being a little cheeky just to any other driver. You're doing it to a man who's won 2 world championships and knows how to do it.
And no matter how tough you are or how strong-willed you are, even if you're Ayrton Senna, if it's Nelson Piquet, the fellow countryman going by you, you've got to be giving it some second thought. The man who was just passed grew up admiring, as an admirer of the man who passed him, so that had to give you some second thoughts.
Well, we have a new leader. Now we've got some more stories down in the pit, so we've got John Bisignano back down there. John?
Christian Danner, a very short race, Hungarian Grand Prix for you. What happened?
Well, I was accelerating out of one of these hairpins, and suddenly the rear suspension snapped off, so I didn't touch anything or anyone. It's very disappointing because the car was going all right, and I was hoping to do a bit of a development on the car, so it's pretty sad, really.
What's the condition of the track out there now?
Well, it's got more grip than in practice, but I think whenever you lose the ideal line, you're in trouble because a lot of dust and sand once you're off the racing line. And that's a problem, especially for overtaking.
Thank you, Christian. A very, very difficult Hungarian Grand Prix for Christian Danner and the USF&G Barclay Arrows. Back to you, Jackson.
Okay, John, thank you very much. Another problem here. Somebody done a little
Arnoux, perhaps?
Rennie Arnoux, who's done a little number there, a tiny excursion in the agriculture.
Trying to make up ground, Jackie. Remember, he made that first lap pit stop. He got way behind, almost 3/4 of a lap, and now he's pressing.
Well, there's been quite a mix-up there. As they can see, this is our leader here. This is Nelson Piquet coming up now to lap the back markers.
And look at Prost. Look how close he is to Senna. The next dark car is Senna. There it is. And the next red white one is Prost.
This is going to be a very exciting program here because Alain Prost has decided to wear different boots than the two Williams cars. He has decided to wear the soft compound in the front two tires. His Goodyear tires are the C compound in the front with the B compound in the rear. Piquet and also Senna and also Mansell are on the slightly harder compound all the way around. So it could be that Alain Prost is getting a little bit more front-end bite. And it looks like he's just about to overtake Ayrton Senna right now.
Now remember, of course, Alain is the one who is famous for being able to not necessarily baby a race car around, but certainly to take better care of it, seemingly, than many of the other drivers. And we talked about the lack of adhesion, particularly in the front end of this race course. And with Prost going to a softer tire up front and his ability to make these cars seemingly get around with a little less abuse, that might be the way to go. Maybe he's the only driver who is able to use that kind of setup. He's had the fastest lap of the race so far.
Well, he's down to 1 minute 34.630, which is about a second faster than was achieved. In fact, it's about a second faster than was achieved by Piquet or by Senna when Senna was leading. Prost, the professor, as they call him, the little frog, like a lot of us call him, because, of course, he's very small in stature and he is very French. He is, of course, reigning world champion. He is really the driver's driver. He's a thinker, and I think he's a serious contender for this race. I think we're looking at the man here who, with Nelson Piquet, I think the battle is going to be between Nelson Piquet and Alain Prost for this Hungarian Grand Prix.
Yeah. Well, maybe I was going to say for the championship. I've had that feeling all along, too, that over the course of the season, I just feel like their experience is going to prevail. And one other thing about Prost, he's a good little guy, Jackie. He's had so much adversity in the last couple seasons, and I feel as though that 2 world championships have been taken from him through a variety of circumstances, some within the grasp of human beings, others just were rotten bad luck. But throughout it all, you never hear him complaining. He never makes excuses. He's not a grandstander. He just goes out, does his job, shrugs his shoulders when things go right or when things go wrong. He's really a joy to be around. He's a good little guy.
Oh, he's somebody I like very much, and he plays quite good tennis, too. Far too good, as far as I'm concerned. Anyway, around this tight little circuit, it's going to be difficult for him to find a way past Ayrton Senna. Senna's seen himself being passed already, so therefore he's going to look out for that. We've got John Bentignano on the pitch. He's got Alan Berg, the young Canadian, down there. And of course, Alan's had a very wretched weekend of luck. John, do you have Alan with you?
Yes, we do, Jackie. Thank you, Alan Berg. You look a little disappointed. We saw them working on your car on the grid. Was that also the problem during the first lap?
Yes, that's right. Just as I came around the last turn after the pit entrance, my turbo boost went down. So they tried what they could on the circuit. However, there wasn't anything they could do, even though whether or not they were in the pits or not. And we took the start. I came into the pits, but there was no way to go back out again. Turbo done.
You're one of the brave North Americans who tried to come to Formula One Grand Prix racing. Do you find it a lot harder than racing in the States? A lot more competitive?
Well, I've done most of my grounding in Europe. I raced 2 seasons in the British Formula 3 Championship against drivers like Senna, Brundle, Berger, Danner, and Johnny Dumfries, who I finished second to in the British Championship in 1984. So I got my schooling as well as those at the same time that those guys did. So.
Well, best of luck in the last 5 races, but a very disappointing Canadian here in our pits.
Well, thank you very much, John. We saw one very long of Alan Jones's pit. I wonder if you might be able to find out what the problem with Alan Jones is and come back to us at a later time on that information. We're back, of course, watching Nannini in the pits again. And
Jackie, somebody has gone off at the end of the straightaway. Everybody in the main stands is standing up, and I could look down from our commentary position. I could see a lot of dust. I don't know if it was anything severe or not. It was not our leader for certain. There is Nelson Piquet, who leads this race, but a lot of dust and debris is up in the air. Doesn't appear to be a crash because I don't see anybody frantically looking or running down in that direction, but somebody went off and caused a big stir here in the main stand.
Well, in fact, I saw the tail end of Ayrton Senna's car a few moments ago, and I didn't see Alan Prost's car, so let's speculate for a second. Let's see if our Hungarian television, but I think it was too early for that. I think that this is now Piquet getting past. I think you'll see Senna and Prost coming into a picture fairly soon. Senna's there, but Prost is not there.
There is Prost coming in.
Prost is coming into the pits. In fact, I think you see the first of his tire changes. Remember, he had the softer compound at the front, and he had the harder compound in the rear. So it'll be interesting there. The clock is running on the bottom right-hand side of the screen. These are the seconds ticking away to see how long he's been in the pit. This is abnormally long for Alan Prost. Big problem here. This is a big problem. So we've got John Bisignano. John Bisignano's down the pits. John, are you there?
We're here, Jackie. That was a very fast match. Stopped by the McLaren boys. There's still a lot of confusion up there right now as you see the McLaren being pushed away there. The second McLaren came screaming by my position here, well over 100 miles an hour right through the pit lane. It's rare to see McLaren this confused, and Bobby also comes down to his position. Jackie Stewart, maybe you can see things better up there for what I can't hear. I'm trying to look through both Brabham and Williams. Back to you, Jackie.
Okay, John, thank you very much. Alan Prost must be very infuriated by this. This is a long stop, but the McLaren team had obviously allowed Keke Rosberg to come into the pit at the same time as Alan Prost, which is certainly an oversight, because that would normally not want to be the case. You wouldn't want two of your cars side by side in the pits having wheel changed at the same time. An abnormally long pit stop also for Theo Fabi, who is parked across from our commentary position. He, in the Benetton car, has stalled his engine. They're trying to restart it now. With the very hot temperatures here in Hungary, it's going to be difficult to restart an engine. Try and sort out what's happening, and we'll be right back for more of the Grand Prix of Hungary. To his overall lap time, so he probably lost the best part of 30 seconds by coming into the pits and going back out again, even without having the wheel change.
Have to believe that one of the drivers made a mistake. I cannot believe, I agree with you, Jackie, that they're both in radio contact. Unless something has happened to the radios, that's always possible. Unless something has happened to the radios, both of them would not have been told to come in on the same lap, and it really has hurt Keke. And by the way, with Alain sitting in the pits right there, just a comment about this guy's ability to finish races. He had racked up 9-point finishing races in a row. Of course, he normally finishes most every race in the trail, but Nigel Mansell was the only other driver who was on a string. He has finished 7 in a row into points up till now.
Well, reliability has an awful lot to do with it, and of course that all happens in the pits with those mechanics. John Bisignano, have you got anything for us?
Well, we ran down to the McLaren pit and tried to get an exact situation down there, but what happened was Keke Rosberg was scheduled to come in for his normal pit stop, and when he came in, of course, his teammate Alain Prost was sitting there and was taking up his pit position. Keke went screaming by here at well over 100 miles, did another lap, and came back in and changed all 4 tires. Now, Prost has been pushed into the garage, and they're working on the management system. They do not say that he's out of the race yet. He may return, but if he is, he's going to have to do it very, very soon. Back to you, Jackie Stewart.
Thank you, John. One other little incident that we had there while away for commercial. Cinzani had had a problem on the course and stopped with the rear right-hand wheel coming apart from the suspension. Whether it was because of a wheel change in the pits and not been tightened up correctly, or whether it just came off by its own mechanical failure, we don't know. But he is stranded on the racetrack as Nelson Piquet still leads. Ayrton Senna's in second place. Nigel Mansell's third. Johnny Dumfries is fourth. Michele Alboreto in the Ferrari is up to fifth position. Gerhard Berger is sixth. Derek Warwick, the Englishman in the Brabham, is seventh with the BMW engine. Martin Brundle with the Data General Tyrrell is up to eighth. Ninth is Keke Rosberg, who's been in the pits. Streff in the other Data General car is making up the top 10. Then comes Johansson, Tambay, Goodson, Alio, Palmer, Arnoux, Fabi, Nannini, Prost, of course, is way back and still in the pits. And Alan Jones had a remarkably long pit stop. However, fastest lap has now been grabbed by Nigel Mansell.
And the other thing, Tambay is back in the standings because of a pit stop, and some of the people who are running in front of him, Jack, you mentioned the Ferrari. Speaking about the Ferrari, there's Alboreto. He's in the pit. He had not pitted yet, so this will now move Michele perhaps back to his more representative position in the standings, as many of the front runners are now executing their pit stops.
Well, he stopped at 9.62 seconds there. Alboreto at the moment is very unhappy with Ferrari. He had a situation yesterday where I think a wheel came undone after he had been in the pits, and he was very sad with it. It seems to me that the trouble with Ferrari generally is that they've got very little leadership in that team. They've got no administrational talent to speak of. No matter what they do with regards to new designers or new drivers, it will never work any better unless the management is right. There is a rumor that John Barnard of McLaren is going over to Ferrari, and that's big news, of course. More of that later. In the meantime, John Vigignano's got another story for us in the pit. John?
The second arrows just pulled into the pit for a routine pit stop, changed all four tires. It doesn't seem like they are going to be changing just the rears. They're putting on all fours for everyone that's been in. Of course, Keke Rosberg's been in, Arnoux has been in, Johansson has been in, and everyone else that we have seen here visiting the pits. Berg is out, if you remember, very early. Hoop Rodengatter is out with a broken radiator. Danner with suspension on the gearbox problem. Jones, we cannot get an exact answer out of the Lola pit on his condition, but we do believe that it was brake problems. So an awful lot of early pit action down here, Jackie, and it's surprising how many teams have already changed four tires. I think you're absolutely right. We're going to see many more than one pit stop here for tires. Back to you, Jackie Stewart.
Well, Nelson Piquet has not yet been in the pits, but let me just quickly give an update again of who is out of the race. Alan Berg is out, Rottengatter is out, Patrese is out with that little coming together with the barrier. Christian Danner, as John Vigignano told us, is out. De Cesaris is out. Ginzani is out. And Alain Prost, as we speak now, is sitting in the pits with the car being worked at. There you see the position after 20 laps. That's the leaderboard.
Remember, this is a 77-lap race. All the pit stops that you have seen have become between laps 15 and 18. Now, it's interesting that both of the Williams cars, plus Senna's Lotus, have not pitted yet. You start to get to that point where you wonder, can they make this race on two-tire pit stops? We figured that everybody else has got to stop at least 3 times. Those that have come in now, because they've come in well under a quarter of this race has elapsed. But can these leaders, who are running faster than everybody, go further? Senna is back inside again, so Piquet is not pulling away and disappearing.
Well, I think you'll find that Nelson Piquet is pacing himself very well, and that's what we are going to do, because we are going to come right back to you for more of the Grand Prix of Hungary in just a moment.
Heat is one of the greatest problems that a team has to deal with during a Grand Prix weekend. It's very important for them to know what temperature components are running at throughout the weekend. And it was a problem until he came up with what they call thermotabs. This is nothing but a thermometer that sticks on the different components. This one is being used to give a detailed readout on the temperature of the brake caliper. But they're showing up all over the car, especially on the cooling system with the radiators. It's a very simple solution to what was a big problem.
Well, of course, it is very important indeed for all of the engineers and the designers of the cars to know what temperatures are being achieved at certain parts of the motor car. And this, of course, allows them to know what they want to do with the next generation of car, and that's where research and development plays a very large part in Grand Prix racing today. Well, our leader is still Nelson Piquet, followed by Ayrton Senna. He seems to have closed up a little bit from the lead that was originally taken by Piquet, but I think myself that Piquet is pacing himself accordingly. This is going to be a very tough race physically. It's very warm outside, a lot of corners, a lot of G-forces, and I think that Nelson Piquet is not necessarily the strongest man in the field, but his only great advantage here is that neither is Ayrton Senna. He's got the fastest lap back, incidentally, Piquet at 134.115. Ayrton Senna, after a race, is never in great trim. He's always exhausted, and if it were Keke Rosberg that was hustling Nelson Piquet, I would be more concerned for Piquet, because Rosberg's as strong as a horse.
Mansell is the third running driver, and he is this year showing that he has some athletic prowess, and Mansell would be a guy who you would think, if he could get up to these people, if it becomes a physical strength battle at the end of this race, would probably be able to overpower both Piquet and Senna. But so far, Mansell has slipped to 12 seconds behind Senna. And by the way, about the fastest lap, Jackie, you realize only 4 different drivers have held the race fastest lap this year, both of the Williams cars, obviously. Alain Prost, and the 4th one was the last race, the German Grand Prix, Gerhard Berger. But despite all those pole positions, Senna has never turned in the race's fastest lap.
Well, his team, Peter Ward, team manager of the JPS Lotus, and Decarouge, the famous engineer that is now almost part of the Senna family, know how to plug together fastest laps for qualifying, and there you see the leaderboard right there. They know how to do that. Of course, these racing engines reduce the turbo boost for the race to get good fuel consumption. Fuel consumption is not something that will worry them in this particular race. It's a slow race with slow corners, but nevertheless, it's a question of being able to put the power on the road economically. Now, motor racing is still going on very much in the United States. The NASCAR Budweiser circuit is going to Watkins Glen. It's live today, 12:30 p.m. Eastern Time, 9:30 a.m. That should be Pacific Time. For the first time in 21 years, the NASCAR Winston Cup Series returns to Watkins Glen, a great racetrack where, of course, the U.S. Grand Prix used to take place. The hottest drivers in that NASCAR circuit will be there. Bill Elliott, Ken Richard Petty, Darrell Waltrip, Dale Earnhardt, Jeff Bodine, etc. They'll be going for $441,000 in this race today. Now, that'll be the 18th race in the 29-race series of this Winston Cup Series, so that'll be pretty impressive. The standings as of the 22nd of July, incidentally, Dale Earnhardt is topping that pack. Darrell Waltrip's lying in second place, and Tim Richmond from Ohio, Ashland, or around that way in Ohio, is lying third. Bob Jenkins will be there. Rick Mears will be commentating, and Jack Arute will be there. So Tim Richmond apparently is on the pole, which is pretty impressive. Watkins Glen, hot and steamy at this time of the year, but always nice to be up in the Glen. And there you see Nelson Piquet passing Patrick Tambay, who is much reduced speed from a very early 4th place that he held in this race.
Jackie, another thing, while we were reading that promo, Alain Prost, there he is on the screen. He is back out of the racetrack. He is 8 laps down. Right now, Prost is in 20th position, but 8 laps in the rear. He's got a very, very tall mountain. No, it's an upright Empire State Building that he has to scale in order to get points here this weekend.
Well, of course, he could get up into 6th position. It depends what the attrition on this track is going to be. He did a remarkable job at the Belgian Grand Prix in Spa. He climbed up from a hopeless position in the pits after being damaged in the first lap incident, and he got himself up in to collect points there. And after all, the World Championship that he lost to Niki Lauda was by only half a point. So therefore, if he could pick up 1 point today in this his 100th Grand Prix, it would certainly be to his advantage.
Yeah, I don't think he lost as many as 8 laps at Spa, but it's a good point. It shows the ability to Prost rather to rebound him. And by the way, we talked about streaks, races in a row with points. The most ever in Formula One racing was Carlos Reutemann, who once scored in 15 straight races, and that was over 2 years, and neither one of them were championship years. But other people have had 9 races in a row. We told you Prost went 9 races so far this year. Jimmy Clark in '63, Graham Hill in 1962, and Juan Manuel Fangio gets a lot less competition. Rosberg's coming in 1954, went 8 races. Keke Rosberg.
Well, Keke Rosberg's coming in at a rather reduced speed, I fear. I think the engine has been switched off. He's taking the steering wheel off. John Bisignano, are you down in the pits? We noticed that Keke Rosberg has come into the pits, incidentally, and has undone his steering wheel.
Exactly, Rosberg has come in, but Alain Prost has actually gone back out. And the car mechanics have fixed the engine management system on Prost, but he has lost a good 5 or 6 laps. Now that means he does not have any fuel problems, and although he's certainly a long way from winning this race or scoring any points, he will be able to run flat out with absolutely no situation as far as fuel economy goes, interrupting the rest of his race. So let's see how quick he'll actually go with the fuel all the fuel he needs and a fresh set of tires. We'll get a report on Keke Rosberg in just a moment. Jackie, back to you.
Jackie, in John's defense, we might add that they've done a very good job of erecting the broadcasting system for us, but one of the advantages that John does not have, he cannot hear all of our commentary. So much of what we say, he was not aware, for instance, how many laps of the lawn had dropped back, and we had picked him up coming out. So that's what's going on. There's a little bit of a communication breakdown there, but we've got good signal down to him as far as cueing him when to come on for a pit report.
Well, of course, Nelson Piquet remains as our leader here with Ayrton Senna second, Mansell is third, Berger is up into 4th place, Johnny Dumfries is in 5th place, Derek Warwick is in 6th, Martin Brundle is now up into 7th place. That's a good position for him in the Data General car. Alboreto is now in 8th, Philip Strath is in 9th, Keke Rosberg sits in the 5th, and his last lap past there he was showing in 10th position. Patrick Tambay is 11th and Johansson is 12th. So this is what's happening in the Grand Prix of Hungary. Our Brazilian Nelson Piquet, twice world champion, is holding a fairly comfortable lead over another Brazilian, Ayrton Senna, and we'll be right back.
Running up front there, you need to depend on your crew. Jackie Stewart, take it back.
Well, John, thank you very much. I think the Williams team are again proving that simply that they are the best at the present time in Grand Prix racing. The McLaren team seems to have fallen back quite a little bit over these last few races, and Williams never have they had more reliability or more talent for doing the right thing at the right moment. I think the Williams team right now are tremendously well managed and tremendously well disciplined. It's not just a question of having powerful race engines, it's a question of them doing very well. Frank Williams himself is here in Hungary. Right now, he is sitting down in the pits for this Grand Prix of Hungary, and in fact, I'll be flying back with him tonight in a private aircraft to Geneva, and then he's going on to London. He, of course, is in his wheelchair. He still is terribly paralyzed, but in fact, he's still in very good shape mentally, which is
one of the problems has gone off. I think it must be Derek, because we saw earlier Patrese get hung up, looked like he got out of the car, took his helmet off. I do not believe that he re-entered the race, so that means that Derek Warwick becomes the second problem casualty. This is the very back end of the course. We told you this course is like South America upside down. There's a series of S's that leads up to that far corner and a series of S's that leads from it, and that's where Derek went off.
Well, Derek's had a lot of trouble all this weekend. Now, John Bisignano is in the pits again. John, are you there, John?
Still here, Jackie. We're surviving. Down in the pits rather well, but actually, as the West car screams by me for his second set of tires, Dr. Jonathan Palmer, an update on the second Keke Rosberg pit stop. The team management down there is being quite secretive, as they normally do. Ron Dennis wouldn't really tell me exactly what it was, but Keke Rosberg's rear tires were absolutely blistered, and then he went and killed the car while it was being let down off the jack, so the delay was actually in the restart. Now we have Alboreto with the Ferrari in the pits. The Ferrari has already had 2 pit stops for tires, so it's certainly eating up both the fronts and the rears. It looks a little bit longer than it should be. We can see the mechanics swarming around the Ferrari. A lot of conversation going on between Alboreto and the crew chief. Alboreto wants to go. All 4 tires changed. But
now he's getting out.
He's out. Something very strange there. Alboreto wanted to continue, and the management was trying to get him out of the car. We'll get a report from the Ferrari pit. Jackie Stewart, take it back.
Another nail in the Ferrari coffin as far as Alboreto's concerned. He can't leave there, however. He is under contract. He wanted to leave. I think he had offers to go to Benetton and to McLaren. I think he could go elsewhere, but I don't think he's allowed to because of contract. But he's a very unhappy man, and they, frankly, at the moment are a very badly run team. Apparently, they were going to change his front wing, but they haven't done so. And incidentally, while we were away there, Keke Rosberg set a new fastest lap at 1:32 seconds, so he's taking his annoyance or anger out of the racetrack.
Jackie, a couple things. By the way, the Williams car that stopped, you can see Piquet continues to lead Senna, was Nigel Mansell. So it was the 3rd running car, the 2nd Williams, Nigel Mansell, who was involved in that pit stop a few laps ago, talking about next year. It's a very strange phenomenon, Jackie, the Ferrari situation. You have Michele Alboreto, whom you've discussed, is relatively unhappy. And then you have Stefan Johansson, who has showed from time to time a great deal of promise, and it seems as though he may be leaving that team too. Just 2 or 3 years ago, maybe the most coveted seat in all of automobile racing, the Ferrari, and now nobody really wants to go to it because they see the team in such disarray and the car simply not as competitive as they once were.
Well, the hot rumor is that John Barnard, the designer of the McLaren team, is going to go and design for Ferrari for a figure that is claimed to be more than $1 million a year. That's a great deal of money. That used to be driver money. It's now designer money. And that's what he is talking about doing. Now, if John Barnard goes there, that's not enough in my view. It's okay to have a good design, but if the car itself and the team are not being run correctly, then there is little that anybody can do. And that is my biggest concern with Ferrari now. Marco Piccinini is the man in charge, and frankly, I don't think it's going to go on for too much longer with Marco in charge, because he's had a long time to put it right, and nothing has happened. The gap right now is only 2.47 seconds from Piquet to Senna, as you can see there. That incidentally could work up to be quite a story.
Yeah, I think that one of them, at least one of them, if not both of them, as you kind of hinted at earlier, is not showing everything that he has. Talking about next year and the changes, some of the rumors that were reported this week, Gerhard Berger apparently has talked with McLaren and is eyeing the seat that Keke Rosberg is stepping out of. It seems as though Johansson might also be a candidate for that seat. Berger, with his strong performances in qualifying this year, certainly deserves to be looked at. Also heard and read from at least 3 sources that Terry Boutsen is not shopping around, but he's checking his options. Certainly, if Berger leaves the Benetton team, that opens up a seat there, and Terry would look like a likely candidate for that.
Well, the other phenomenon right now is the Ford engine. What's going to happen? There's even been rumors that Carl Haas is going to sell out to Bernie Eccleston. That's been in all the magazines over here. Whether that will happen or not is another matter. Berger has also been discussed for that team, I hear, in the pit lane over this weekend. There's certainly going to be musical chairs, as there always is.
And 2 other things. Eddie Cheever apparently has put together a presentation and has plopped it on the Ford Motor Company desk. He hopes that if something should open up with a Haas-Ecclestone duo right there, that maybe something will be provided for him. And I also heard this week, as we look at René Arnoux coming into the pit, that BMW may not be getting completely out of racing.
No, we hear that they, in fact, are going to stay in with 1 or 2 teams, probably just 1 team. Well, John Visignano is down in the pits again, and we've got more work for him. John?
Jackie, as you saw, the Ligier just made his 2nd pit stop. Arnoux came in very early for tires, and now he's gone at least a third of the distance before he had to change again. That's the Pirelli shod teams. It looks like right now Lotus is setting up. Brabham is backing up. Both of their cars are out of the race. Bernie Eccleston has actually left the pit area and maybe has left the circuit, unfortunately. And we're trying still to get an exact situation on the front end damage to the Ferrari down there. We don't know if it was done between Warwick and Alboreto. That is being confirmed to me now that Alboreto's nose was damaged. And back to you, Jackie.
Thank you very much. Well, as you saw there, Patrick Tambay suddenly came to a stop in the middle of the racetrack here on the final corner of this racetrack. For some reason, the car literally came to a stop. He wasn't in the pit lane. He was on the racetrack. He was in the center of the racetrack. The marshals went out, pushed him away.
And he just got away as Piquet came around with teammate Alan Jones in tow.
Well, that could have been a tricky business because it's very difficult from the very low position that drivers sit to know if a car is actually stopped or whether it's traveling at any speed.
Yeah, what Piquet was Nigel Mansell. That gives you an idea how much distance Piquet has over his teammates. You know, Jackie, we need to talk a little bit, I think, about what we experienced here this weekend. We're looking down in the pits. A little more on that in a second. One of the Lotuses said that Dumfries is running in the top 5. Certainly a predictable pit stop at 33 laps. Do you think he can go the distance on one set?
Well, it looks like he might be able to go the distance. They usually go a little bit longer on that second set. Johnny Dumfries, incidentally, has been giving his marching orders from Lotus. They're going to have the Honda engine next year, Lotus are, and Dumfries has been told that part of the deal is that Honda want to have a Japanese driver in the second seat. So that means that Johnny Dumfries is going to be in the market, as one of the Data General Tyrrells have been in for a wheel change. It's rather a long one, I'm sorry to say. The right-hand tires are being changed a lot slower than the left-hand tires, and there is a problem, but no problem for the Williams team as they continue to go along with enormous consistency and reliability.
That Japanese driver again, by the way, is Satoru Nakajima. He is running Formula 3000 this year. He's not even in the top 10 in points. Ivan Capelli, who was a candidate for a Formula 1 racer at the beginning of the season, continues to lead in points, but Nakajima obviously is a favorite of the Honda factory, and that's how he got that ride. Jackie, back to the subject of what we're experiencing. Well, let's interrupt that again because the leader, Nelson Piquet, is coming into the pits. Nelson Piquet, who has led this race from the early stages, appears to have everything in the palm of his hand. Let's see just exactly how this first of maybe 3, maybe 2 pit stops goes.
John Mizignano, are you with us, John?
I got it, Jackie. We got Nelson Piquet in the pits. Of course, it looks like a routine pit stop. Out of the way he goes, and he comes by here. Accelerated all the way down the pit lane. He's got 9 points into about to be out at the end of the pit row and back on the track. He wants this victory. Jackie Stewart, take it back.
The official time in there is Theo Fabi stepping out of his car, looking at the front end with some concern. It looks like he feels that something's wrong there. Whether he's been in contact with anything, I'm not sure. He wants to look around his car, but Fabi certainly had a problem there. And there Nelson Piquet is weaving his way around there. 8.1 seconds was the official time given to us for that stop of that tire change there. So Nelson Piquet has stopped, and Nigel Mansell has stopped, and Ayrton Senna is still on the road. We'll be right back for more of this Grand Prix, the first in the Eastern Bloc for a very long time, in just a moment. As Alan Prost is back in the Keke Rosberg is out of his car. He's back in the pit. Not a good day for McLaren. They're in really bad shape. Somehow or other, their world is falling apart. Ron Dennis is a man who's been able to mastermind almost everything in this team for a long time now. He seems to be losing his designer. He seems to be losing the mechanical reliability they had. It seems that everything for the moment is going wrong. Alain Prost is still out in the field. He started his 100th Grand Prix today, and who knows, he might finish in the points at the end of the day. He's found himself creeping up in the field, but he's still a very long way from doing anything substantial. Ayrton Senna, however, here is hungry for another win because of the World Championship points he's looking for. Alan Jones had a very long pit stop early on in this race that I explained to you had taken abnormally long. In fact, it seems that there was a leaking brake caliper in the right rear of the car, and that was rectified, and he, of course, is back in the race at somewhat a reduced speed.
A most unusual day for the McLarens. As Jackie told you, it's very uncharacteristic for one, let alone two of them, to drop out of a race. And all weekend long, it has looked like a McLaren weekend. In the various timing stages of the weekend, the practices on Friday and Saturday, the straightaway speeds, they have constantly, both of them, been in the top three. As a matter of fact, the worst ranking that either one of them had was a 7th overall, and that was in Friday's practice. But in qualifying and on straightaway speeds, of course, this track with all the corners, all the cars who were timing among the top 5 or top 10 also had the highest straightaway speeds, unlike some of the faster circuits where it's not always the case. But it really did look like it was going to be a McLaren weekend. And even down to this morning, when they were the 1st and the 3rd fastest, you just had the feeling that it was about to happen again because they've been so good for the last 2 years.
I was giving Alan Prost a very good chance to win this motor race, but it wouldn't be today. Ayrton Senna goes fast, and I'll try and give you the lead that he has on Nelson Piquet. He, of course, Piquet has been in the pits. It's not the 8.1 seconds that he lost in the pits. It's the time, the elapsed time that you have to give up by entering the pits and by exiting the pits, and that is a substantial amount of time, considering that now
fastest lap.
Senna has set up a new fastest lap of 132.153, and the gap between Senna and Piquet is now 25.95 seconds. So 25-second lead as the Data General car comes into the pits. Martin Brundle driving the car. The Ken Tyrrell team made a little bit of a screw-up, it seems, the last pit stop. It doesn't seem that it's a screw-up this time. 10.5 seconds from the wheel stopping to the wheel starting.
And gradually, everybody has dropped to at least one lap down to Senna, Piquet, and Mansell. And Mansell is a minute in arrears. Now, he had that earlier pit stop. Senna is yet to come in. Ayrton Senna, who is not what you'd call known for taking care of a race car, has not come in. Apparently, Jackie, they have found the right combination today for him to be able to take care of these tires because he's been fast. He's turned the race's fastest lap. He still is yet to come in.
Well, in fact, he is about the smoothest driver on tires, Larry. He is a very gentle driver on tires. This is well proven. If you speak to people like Lee Goff of Goodyear, Lee would tell you that Senna, Piquet, and Prost are the lightest on tires. And as it happens, that Senna chose the same tires as Piquet and Mansell did. So it's interesting that he is on an intermediate compound. It's not the softest and it's not the fastest, but it's doing pretty darn well just now if he still again put up a fastest lap.
Yeah, I didn't catch the readout on that to know if it was still faster.
Yes, it was still faster again. So that was a 132.005. So he's almost into the 131 seconds, which is very fast. The track is getting faster. There is no doubt about that. Now, the car's out of the race. Let's give you a little update on that. Berg's out, Rothengatter's out, Patrese is out, Danner's out, De Cesaris is out, Kinzani is out, Warwick is out, Alboreto is out, Fabi and Rosberg are now officially out of the race. So that is not what they want to hear, but it won't be any more business for them. Alain Prost has been in the pits, but he got back into his race car and is circulating at the present time. He's not shown in our leaderboard because, of course, he is 8 laps behind. But unfortunately, it depends on how many other cars drop out with regards to how he will finish in the race itself as you look at the leaderboard.
Jackie, a couple of times we started to talk about the setting here and what we are experiencing here in Hungary, in a socialist country for the first time. We are in the bottom of a valley, and we are amidst a peasant village. There are actually a couple villages that we can see from our vantage point here in the announce booth. There are grape vineyards all around the country. You get the idea that the income level isn't the highest. I've heard a figure of 150 American dollars per month. And from our vantage point, the hills are covered with people. Jackie told you at the top of the show, our best guess is that there are well over 200,000 people who have showed up here. This size of a crowd must be an absolute shock to the countryside here, the people who've lived here all their years. They never expected to see anything like this. As you look out, you see trees, you also see church steeples. It's a very pastoral setting, but the race cars come here and they make a lot of noise, and this has got to be a big change to the lifestyle of Hungary. And the people, not only that they showed up in numbers, but they're very enthusiastic about being here.
They surely are. Another man who's enthusiastic about being here is John Bisignano. John is still down in the pitch. Do you have a story for us, John?
Thank you, Jack. We have a very strange report, actually, something I've never really heard of, but on Keke Rosberg's car, they were losing air out of the tires. It seems like the adhesion on the front wheels, for some strange reason, was breaking the bead. Also, the left rear. This happened on 2 times, and they finally gave up, thinking that it was unsafe for him to continue, but I cannot remember exactly when that situation has occurred to retire a leading Formula One team in many, many years. Maybe you can think of a little bit better times when that was a little bit more of a problem, but since the tires have been fitting these wheels so tightly, I cannot think in many years when the tires have been losing air to the point of causing a retirement. And the Lotus team is ready for Senna coming in here. Also, Jackie, at 1 hour into the race, we only had 42 laps still to go, and in my calculations, that means that we are going to be under the 2-hour rule. So keep a good eye on your watches rather than number of laps to go. We'll be back with the Lotus pit stop in just a few more laps. Take it back, Jackie.
Well, with regards to the air in the tires, it does seem very strange. Keep in mind that, of course, the Goodyear tires fitted to those wheels. The wheels, of course, are those of McLaren. It could well be that the wheels themselves are porous. They're aluminum wheels. It could be they've got a bad batch of wheels, therefore letting the air out, because all of these tires are tubeless tires. In the majority of cases, this is an unknown factor as far as I'm concerned, so I really think it's a peculiarity to McLaren, because Goodyear are obviously fitting the large majority of the race cars here as Senna comes into the pit. So Ayrton Senna is coming in, and we'll try and go down to John Bisignano and see if he can tell us what's happening in that Senna pit stop. John Bisignano, are you with us? Because Ayrton Senna's on his way to you. Are you there, John?
He's right in front of me. I can actually see his eyes. His visor's up. The car is up. The RPMs are up. All the mechanics are running around the car. They got their hands up. Senna is not back down yet. There is a problem on one of the corners. RPMs up. And Senna's out of here. Accelerating all the way down the pit lane, well over 100 miles an hour before the exit. Jackie, a little bit of a problem there, but still a wonderful job by Bob Dance and the Lotus crew. Back to you.
Well, that was 11.11 seconds. Take that against, it's about a 3-second deficit on what Nelson Piquet had. So he was now out on tires. They're not fresh new tires, incidentally. All of those tires have been scrubbed. They know what they're going out in, and he now is just getting the temperatures up a little bit. So this first lap will have to be relatively gentle. As you can see, the Lotus engineers with Bob Dance with his back to you here. You can see there's a discussion going on about the man that you're looking at right now.
It was a right rear, so maybe it will be uneventful, but something to keep in mind.
Well, certainly they had a good chat about it. We're having a good chat with you about the Grand Prix of Hungary. We'll be right back. We're back. It's the Grand Prix of Hungary, and the leader is Ayrton Senna, driving the JPS Lotus with his yellow helmet, coming from Brazil. And I'm going to put the clock on him to see how far ahead he is of his fellow Brazilian, and that is Nelson Piquet driving the Williams. And my watch stopped at 9.82 seconds. Nearly 10 seconds lead at this stage. It's a long way to go, but it's a very useful little lead he's built up, and he's built it up by consistently going quickly after Nelson Piquet had been in the pits. He constantly has been breaking the lap record. As we see one of the USFNG cars in the pits, it looks like gear selection trouble. Terry Boutsen is still in the cockpit of the car, but it's a very leisurely stop they're having.
Mansell is running in third. He continues to run there. He's 53 seconds, or the vast majority of a lap behind. He's not one lap down yet, but almost the length of this racetrack behind the leader, Ayrton Senna. Matter of fact, I think that might have been he right in the picture there. Yeah, Mansell goes down the front stretch. So now he has a good 2 or 3 turn lead on Ayrton. Fourth is Gerhard Berger, turning in one of his better performances. He's been up there before this year. He's had some good finishes. The Ferrari of Johansson is 5th, and Johnny Dumfries, Ayrton's teammate, is in 6th position. Maybe he's in line for his first points gathering race of the 1986 season.
Well, that would be very nice if Johnny Dumfries, a young Scotsman, of course, he in fact is the Earl of Dumfries, as his own teammate, whips past in the Data General Tyrrell. The black JPS Lotus, black in a hot day like this, of course, collects temperature rather than dissipates it. And he will be sitting in that car in black uniform as well as being in a black car. And he's not a very robust man, is Ayrton Senna. He's very thin to start off with. And he's never been the fittest man. He's always, to me, seemed rather fragile. He had a problem which, and here we have Gerhard Berger has stopped right in the middle of an area down behind the pits, I think. Berger's getting out of the pit, out of the car. He came from 12th up to 4th position at one time, Berger did, in the Benetton BMW engined car. But it looks like the office is closing for him today. That's too bad for him. I repeat that, of course, our leader at this time is Ayrton Senna. Second is Nelson Piquet as Berger walks back now. Nigel Mansell, the present World Championship leader, and he's got a cool head on. You can see that black thing on his head. That is a circulation cool hat that is used quite often in the American stock car series as well as in the GTP cars and the Trans Am cars. He was wearing that to keep his head cool. As I was saying, Berger was up to 4th position, and of course that takes him out of it. That allows Stefan Johansson and the Ferrari to take up that 4th position. Then comes Johnny Dumfries, which gives him into 5th position. Then Martin Brundle 6th, Streff is 7th, Tandy is 8th. In the Ford engine car that had gone so well in practice. Abiol stepping in for the injured Jacques Lafitte, and incidentally Jacques Lafitte went through a very long operation in France just the other day for a badly injured pelvis. He is progressing. It says that he will be 4 months before he is able to walk again. As we recognize, the gap between Senna and Piquet is now 9.3 seconds, so picked up half a second.
Jackie, in talking about the setting here, the punchline we didn't get to, this is as close as racers, at least on the Formula One scale, have ever been to Moscow. We are 1,400 miles from the capital of the USSR. We are only about 175, 180 miles from the USSR border. So that puts things into perspective. We're surrounded by Austria, Czechoslovakia, Romania, and the USSR.
Well, right now, down the pit, John Vignano's got more work for us. John?
Jackie, you saw Gerhard Berger stop at the entrance to the pit road, and as he walked up, we tried to waylay him. Wait one moment, we have Nigel Mansell into the pits for a pit stop. The Williams crew is doing another one of their excellent jobs again. All hands up. Nigel, get the RPMs up before you come down, and he is in and out. Nigel Mansell, his second pit stop of the day. Look, routine, all 4 tires. Jackie, as I was saying, we tried to waylay Berger when he came by here. He says, John, I'm sorry, I've got to go to the hospital before I talk to anyone. I said, why? He said, because I'm covered with gasoline. He's been sitting in gasoline for the last 5 laps, and it's given him a terrible skin burn. Maybe you've just experienced that yourself. It's a very uncomfortable feeling, and that's what put him out of this Hungarian Grand Prix. Gas in the cockpit. He was a brave man to go the 5 laps he did, but he had to call it a day. Jackie Stewart, back to you.
John, and I can tell you that the more sensitive areas of your body are very keen to get out of that gasoline.
It's that part between your head and feet, isn't it?
It's something like that, but I can tell you high-octane gasoline nips very badly.
Yeah.
And therefore I can really endorsed the fact that Berger wants to be washed off now. He'll go down to the field hospital here where Professor Watkins' staff of Hungarian doctors and nurses will certainly look after Berger, and he'll be okay. The gap is being whittled away by Nelson Piquet. He's shortened that lead down to close to 9 seconds now. You see that is 9.095 seconds. So he's working on it, but he's not making an enormous impact on Senna.
Well, Jackie, we're more than halfway, but we're not getting to the point where the end is in sight yet. So you got to figure that, I mentioned earlier, two of the drivers, maybe both of them, is still holding a closed hand and really hasn't made his final bet yet and tried to call the other person's hand. Because we've got 47 laps of 77 down, so still 30 to go.
Well, I think that's the case. We're showing 29 laps to go on this race, and whether it goes to 29 laps or whether it goes the 2-hour limit is something that we'll all have to wait for, and I'll give you more information on. This is Jackie Stewart along with Larry Newber and John Visignano. We're in Budapest for the Grand Prix of Hungary, and we'll be back.
Budapest is a delightful city. It's very European. It's one of those cities that lives and breathes along a river. In this case, the Danube, or as known here in country, it's known as Dornau. The city was once the capital of a monarchy. There's a castle that still resides high on a hill overlooking the city. And it's been a thoroughly enjoyable and surprising weekend. It's not at all what I expected, and I would recommend it to any American who is thinking about coming over here. And by the way, Rod and Ed have a message to Pat and Marianne of Los Gatos, a city near Laguna. I guess these are two Americans who are wandering around the country, or wandering around Europe, rather. And he said to tell them that we're all well and good, having a good time, and we'll be back.
Well, that sounds nice. They're having a good time over here. I think we must recognize that it is, of course, a very communist country here. Although religion is allowed, and we're in the Sabbath today, about 85% of the country is made up of the Catholic Church. But keep in mind that the beautiful architecture was all coming from the past. Centuries ago, when this was not a socialist country, when it was, of course, very a capitalist in nature. Now, of course, we've got more sport today, as we see on our leaderboard here right now, the leaders and who they are. We've got sport coming to you on ESPN, the Volvo International. The finals are live on this Sunday, the 10th of August, 12:30 Eastern. That makes it 9:30 Pacific time. The final will be made up with Becker and Lendl. Now, that's going to be great to be able to tune in to that today. That'll be a great classic final. The two-time Wimbledon champion, along with Ivan Lendl, the world's #1. Right now, this man is trying to be #1, but he's lying #2 because Nelson Piquet is sitting there in the lead with Ayrton Senna. The man that you're looking at in the black GPS Lotus is lying second. Nigel Mansell is lying third in the other Cannon Williams car with a Honda engine. Frank Williams, paralyzed from a road accident in March, is here to see this performance. You can see the difference is almost 4 seconds a lap that Piquet has built up. Not so 4 seconds per lap, but 4 seconds ahead on the racetrack. And the leaderboard as we see it is Piquet, Senna, Mansell, Johansson on the Ferrari, Johnny Dumfries is 5th, Martin Brundle is still 6th, Philip Stretz is 7th, Patrick Tambay is still in 8th position, Philip Alliot is 9th, and Jonathan Palmer in the West Zaxpeed car with 17 laps to go finds himself in the top 10. 17 laps to go with 20 minutes basically, or around 22 minutes.
Yeah, 22 minutes.
And that'll be interesting to see whether the checkered flag will be thrown at the 2-hour mark or whether we will complete those 17 laps in time. That's a big question.
There is Dumfries. He's having a great day. Johnny is 5th. Let's talk a little bit about fuel as we go back to the leader, Nelson Piquet. In his post-qualifying news conference yesterday, Ayrton, fastest qualifier, of course, said that he didn't expect fuel to become a factor unless the track continued to improve and they got faster as the day wore on.
Which they have.
Yes, they have. And I got to believe that particularly Senna and that guy right there, Piquet, have got to be watching and checking those computers to find out what the fuel economy is doing. Now, Jack, we're looking at this track. The groove is very distinctive, and I cannot believe that the track is not coming apart. We have seen no evidence of it, but with the groove becoming so visible, it just seems like this track must be kicking up a little bit. We know that some of the debris from the countryside has made the lane narrower. But do you think that is a factor at all in the tire wear, or do you think that the groove is getting bad?
No, I just think you're seeing on an absolutely fresh racetrack a black groove that's developing because the cars are running in that area. Keep in mind that this is a brand new track. No less than 7 months ago, what you're looking at now was a wooded flat area of bush and some fields. There was no racetrack. There was no racing on it at all. So therefore, this groove that you're looking at, the surface itself seems to be holding up, and it's just a question of the tires marrying into it. When we come back here next year, and there has been a 5-year contract worked out with Hungary, this track will be in better shape than it is now. There will be more of a groove because there will be some form of racing. It's very primitive motorsport, incidentally. Here in Hungary, in the Eastern Bloc countries, there is another Formula event that takes place here. They look like Super Bs or Formula Ford cars, but they're really not very sophisticated cars. And there you see the leaderboard. Stefan Johansson is 1 lap down. Don Friis is 1 lap down, and then Martin Brundle is 2 laps down. So you can see that these front runners have taken a considerable advantage over everybody else. And there is Stefan Johansson. We haven't seen much of Ferrari today. In the early part of the race, we had, of course, Michele Alboreto well up, but he continues to have more and more trouble with the Ferrari team, and frankly, not a happy man.
It's been a tough year. There has never been, in the modern era of Formula One racing, a Hungarian Formula One driver, but ironically enough, what most people consider as the first ever Grand Prix held in June of 1906. That was before our time, right? It was won by a Hungarian. That race was at Le Mans. There was also a Hungarian Grand Prix in 1936 in downtown Budapest, People's Park to be exact, and the great Nuvolari won that in a Ferrari, and was a memorable race because it was one of the few pre-World War defeats that Hitler had. They, of course, were fielding the very powerful Mercedes-Benzes and the Auto Unions, and Nuvolari and the Ferrari took him to test.
Well, in fact, he was driving an Alfa Romeo, team managed by Ferrari.
Oh, is that what it was?
Yeah, it was an Alfa Romeo, and he was driving because in those days, Enzo Ferrari, the living legend of today, was in fact the team manager.
True enough.
That's
Enzo has not always built cars. He did use those others for a while, yeah.
Well, now, an interesting little scene here. Nigel Mansell is about to be lapped by Nelson Piquet, and he should allow that to happen fairly easy. It could be that Nigel Mansell is in trouble, has a mechanical factor slowing him down, because he does seem to be easily caught by Nelson Piquet. The blue flags are being waved. I thought he was going to let his teammate through, but he hasn't done so.
We're coming around to the final turn, and Nelson, you can see, is waving so that Mansell can see him in his mirror.
Exactly.
We're coming on to the turns 18, and now Nigel moves over. There he is, and Piquet goes by, and Nelson apparently saw that little wave.
Well, he probably hadn't seen him early enough, and the flag marshals, as I said earlier, are a little inexperienced here. They haven't seen this kind of racing very much, and therefore they wouldn't be giving quite as much warning.
Now Senna moving up on Mansell. What do you think, Jackie? It seems like there's such a difference in the speed right now between Mansell and Senna. He doesn't have any choice but to move over, even though he's kind of trying to help out his teammates.
They're not the best of friends, Mr. Mansell and Mr. Senna. They've had comings together.
Yeah, like Brazil, for instance.
Regularly. In fact, they've had it in several events, and in fact, Nigel, there is no love lost between those two drivers. So it will be interesting to see what happens here. Our Hungarians are giving us the shot of Nelson Piquet, but now you can see Senna is right up behind him, and if Nigel is having any kind of mechanical trouble,
caught him at the right place.
Then he will clearly, my goodness, he really made a job of that. It does seem that Nigel's backing off, because the Honda power has historically over these last 2 years been considerably more than that of the Renault, and therefore I would have expected, if he had been going in full power, that Senna could simply not have passed there. Perhaps just for a moment we should go through the cars out of the race here. We've got, as we said earlier, Alan Berg is out, Rottengatter from Holland is out, Patrese from Italy in the Brabham is out, Danner in the USF&G's Arrow is out, De Cesare is out, Ginzani is out, Warwick in the other Olivetti Brabham is out, Alboreto in the Ferrari is out, the Benetton Fabi car is out, then we have Prost is out, Rosberg is out, then that's both cars from the McLaren team. Berger is out, Nannini is out, Alan Jones from Australia in the Ford engine Haas car is out, and René Arnoux is the last retiree. He's had a problem in the Gitan car. They're all out of the race. There has been no incidents to speak of. There's been a little kiss with the barrier, but it's nothing very serious, certainly no big dramas. The gap remains comfortable for Piquet. He's 3.2 seconds ahead of Ayrton Senna. We're in Budapest, and we'll be back for more of this Grand Prix of Hungary. Back at the Grand Prix of Hungary, Nelson Piquet is now sitting behind Johnny Dumfries. He's caught him just coming onto the start-finishing line. He will try to get past him before the end of this front stretch, because then that will allow him to get away from Ayrton Senna. He's made the pass, he's clear, he's through, and that will not have slowed him up in any way at all. So we have him well out of trouble as he passed Johnny Dumfries. John Bisignano is down in the pits with more of an update from there. John?
Thank you, Jackie. A couple things. Number one, the Lotus pit is setting up as if they're going to change. We don't know who may be coming in, but it certainly could have an effect on the outcome of the race. They are set up to change somebody. Trying to find out why Nigel Mansell is slowing. The crew chiefs won't talk to us. Even Donovan wouldn't give out any secrets. But as Mansell goes by us, we can hear him trying to downshift for the right-hander at the end of the pit straight and having some problem. So it could be a gearbox or clutch problem that is making Nigel Mansell go in reverse here at the Hungarian Grand Prix. Back to you, Jackie.
Jackie, lots of moving around in the Williams pit. We can see one of the Williams cars slowing down. Is that Nigel, or is that Senna moving up on Piquet? Lots of moving around in the Williams pits, though. 3 or 4 crewmen just rushed back to the garage, came out wheeling tires. No, that is Senna moving up on Piquet. As you heard John mention, there's also some scurrying and some activity in the Lotus pit. Can both of these people be in trouble with tires?
Well, certainly Nelson Piquet got the car offline there just a couple of corners ago, and he certainly wasn't in a position to do very much. And as we saw just before we went to commercial, Senna was 3.5 seconds behind, and suddenly he's now well within a second. So it could be that Nelson Piquet just made some errors, missed some apexes, could be getting a little tired, and if you're physically tired, you're mentally tired. And if that's the case, there's a lot of strain on a driver at this stage in the race. There's probably about 10 laps still to go in this race.
10 laps to go, or that 2-hour time limit, and by our best guess, we're down to almost 10 minutes left in the race. Not enough to go 10 laps, so maybe there's only 9.
And you know, the man in second place, that lovely We Try Harder routine, where you're number 2, certainly could come into play here. 2 Brazilians, Piquet certainly under pressure. At the British Grand Prix, Nigel Mansell took away from Nelson Piquet any chance of winning the race in about the last 15 laps, because Piquet really got very tired, and Nigel Mansell was very strong and was able to take that advantage, and therefore
even without the water bottle, yeah.
But look, they've opened up a little gap again. I think you'll find that suddenly Nelson had a mental lapse and made some errors of judgment and has now collected himself, hopefully. This would, of course, put him into contention of the World Championship. He has 38 points at the present time. It would put him up to 47 points if he were to win this race. But Ayrton Senna, of course, would pick up 6 points, which would put him into second place with 48 points in the championship, still behind Nigel Mansell, who at the present time, of course, has got 51, and because he's in third place, it would give him 55 points, so it would give him a substantial lead still in the World Championship, while Alan Prost today is picking up no championship championship points. As we look at the leaderboard, there are still far too many cars running for Alain Prost to allow himself any chance of picking up the points. He lost 8 laps in the pits. If you have just joined us in this coverage of the Grand Prix of Hungary here on ESPN, he was in the pits for 8 laps with mechanical difficulties, went back out with a new black box and computer system on, but certainly is not in great shape. However, the big news right now is that Stefan Johansson is catching Nigel Mansell for that 3rd position. Johansson in the Ferrari is making enormous ground up. The crowd here, a lot of Italians come up to Hungary for this event, are cheering the Ferrari on. Young Stefan Johansson, a great favourite, and we'll have to stay with that story as the race continues here, because by my clock, we only have less than 10 minutes to run. And look what's happened again. Senna's right up again on Nelson Piquet.
Same thing last lap. Piquet was very cautious and very precise in this final turn, and it propelled him down the front stretch, and he was able to easily hold off Ayrton through the first half of the racetrack. But I noticed at the last lap, Jackie, you know, they tell you when you go to driver's school that last turn before one of the fast parts, or the fastest part of the racetrack, is one of the critical ones. On the front stretch here, Senna turns in the fastest lap here late in the race. It's not the very fastest place on this track, but it's the 2nd fastest place.
Well, I don't think we've seen the end of this Grand Prix. Don't switch off your TV sets. Don't change channels. You just sit there. We're coming right back. We're back. Grand Prix of Hungary. The gap has opened up again since we've been away. Nelson Piquet has exercised a little bit of authority. He's put himself together, and in fact he finds himself with a comfortable margin again. You can see the difference is built up again to 2.253 seconds. No accounting for that at all. I was concerned that his tires had begun to go off, and that Senna had been saving his tires a little bit more perhaps, and maybe that was the reason. You can see our leaderboard right now. The story is Johansson going to try and catch Mansell before the end of this race? We estimate there's only a matter of about 5 minutes left in this race. We don't think we're going to be able to complete the full distance. What we're going to do is, there is practically 7 laps still to run. 7 laps is about 10 minutes. So therefore, we are going to see the end of the race blocked by the checkered flag in a regulation by the governing body of this sport that each Grand Prix will run no longer than 2 hours. Even if it is a race running, say, 74 laps, it will not run through its entire distance if the race runs as long as 2 hours. Whether it's in the dry or in the rain, it now is 6 laps to go, as you can see for the screen. And you can see the man in the lead here, Nelson Piquet from Brazil, is having a Brazilian weekend with this man closing up a little bit on him again, young Ayrton Senna, not letting him get any peace because he now has completed the fastest lap. It's only a matter of 2 seconds slower than was achieved in pole position. So this racetrack has certainly come right and has got faster.
And remember, Senna has not turned in yet this year a race's fastest lap. If that stands up, this will be the first time this year that the man who has qualified in the pole, 6 times, I guess, in 11 races, Jackie, has turned in the fastest lap during the race itself. And by the way, talking about that battle, or the ensuing battle for 3rd position, Johansson trying to catch Mansell, moving in on him. The last time by, Johnny Dumfries, who was 1 lap behind the 2 of them, was sandwiched between them. So Stefan has to get around Johnny Dumfries, Ayrton Senna's teammate, in order to move up into challenge Nigel Mansell.
Well, it'll be interesting to see what happens as they come past the start-finishing line with 5 laps to go. The gap is 1.88 seconds on my estimations, and we, of course, were speaking earlier. We have later today more motor racing for you here on ESPN. The NASCAR Budweiser race at Watkins Glen, live today at 12:30 p.m. Eastern Time. That's 9:30 a.m., of course, in the Pacific. For the first time in 21 years, NASCAR's Winston Cup Series returns to Watkins Glen. It used to be, of course, the home of the U.S. Grand Prix. I managed to win the U.S. Grand Prix there, and you see another fastest lap being set up by Senna. The leading drivers will be competing there, looking like an average speed of about 120 miles an hour and these NASCAR vehicles around there chasing a purse of $441,000. The current Winston Cup standings are that Dale Earnhardt's leading. That was of the 22nd of July. Darrell Waltrip sitting in second place. And the pole setter for today's race, that's Tim Richmond. He's lying third in the point standing now for the Winston Cup. So that's what you're going to see today, live on ESPN. Richard Petty will be there. Famous Bill Old Elliott down there, and his Thunderbird's going to be there. Darrell and Jeff Bodine are going to be in charge. So you're going to see some good motor racing.
And Jackie, in case you haven't heard, the big news from down south is that they finally opened the secret envelope. Whoa! One of the Ligiers almost pulling out in front of the leader, PK. They finally opened up the secret envelope in terms of Junior Johnson's driver from next year. Guy originally from Corpus Christi, Texas, now living in North Carolina, one Terry Labonte.
Well, that's something for him, old Junior Johnson. Well, there's a good name to be associated with.
Indeed.
Lucky for Terry. So this is what is left in the race, and this shows you the 1:56.18 seconds.
About 2.5 laps.
So we've got a very short time to go. In other words, little more than 3 3/4 minutes to go in this race, and then the checkered flag will be shown.
Jackie, one thing that is a little puzzling until you start to think about it and think of the possible answers for it, Senna has turned in the race's fastest lap on, I believe, the last 2 circuits, but he's not moved in appreciably on PK. I think PK is doing just about the same, and maybe Nelson is in one of those. There, well, I was going to say that he's probably running just about as fast as Senna, and there's the answer. He is now the new fastest lap of the race.
Well, Nelson Piquet now is within the last 3 minutes of this Grand Prix of Hungary, the first World Championship Grand Prix to be brought to Hungary in recent history. An amazing achievement by Bernie Eccleston, the Formula One Constructors Association. The Eastern Bloc are seeing our capital of sports for the very first time, and I think that they like what they see. We've enjoyed coming to Hungary and to Budapest. It made us very welcome. It does seem that Ayrton Senna is slowing down. It does seem that Piquet has taken enormous advantage. Ayrton Senna is cooling it. He wants to finish this race. He wants to be sure. Maybe he's playing a tactic. Maybe he's running low on fuel. Because, of course, he has a computer readout. And there you see the running time of this race at the bottom of your screen. Nelson Piquet will be told on his two-way radio, take your time, Nelson. Senna is slowing down behind you. There is no rush. I can see already a few of the spectators beginning to move. They've seen the trend.
Jackie, we also have lost sight of the fact, I think, because there's been so much going on. It's such an unusual event. We're excited to be here that if Piquet wins, this will be his second win in a row. Remember, he won the opening round in Brazil. He had not won since. He will now have won 2 in a row, and in the last 3 races, he's had 2 seconds, scratch that, to first and 1 second. So Nelson Piquet, at the 11th race here of the 16-race season, is beginning to come on. There will be 16 races in this year's Formula One Championship. Following the race here at Hungary, there are 5 more. Austria, Italy, Portugal, and then wrapping up with Mexico and Australia in late October.
Well, it's going to be an exciting end to the season, and we look as if they're going to get 1 more lap in, and maybe just a little bit more. We're coming to the last minute, and therefore this is good timing for Nelson Piquet. He'll cross here, and he will only get round, and he will be given the checkered flag. So in reality, although 2 laps is being shown up there, it will be 1 lap more because of the regulations coming in on the 2-hour rule. Now, if this happens, the World Championship is going to be much closer. As I read it now, Nelson Piquet, with only a matter of less than 2 miles to go, will find himself with 47 points in the World Championship. He's back in the running because Senna, by picking up 2nd place today, assuming he does so, will get 48 points after this race. And Nigel Mansell, by finishing in 3rd position, would gain 55 points in total by picking 4 of them up today. He will still lead the World Championship, and that will pull Alain Prost down into 4th position in the World Championship. So Nelson Piquet, who has driven again an extremely well-balanced race, a very well-balanced race. It's now coming up to 2 hours, and now we will see if the checkered flag is going to be giving there I'm looking down towards, and the checkered flag is being given. He's out there in front, and this consistent drive again, this amazingly well-prepared Williams team
cars once again
have done it again. Their sponsors, Mobil and Canon and Honda, must be really pleased with them. They've renewed their contract with the Honda engine for 1987 as he takes the checkered flag. There you see it. Nelson Piquet has won the Grand Prix of Hungary. We're waiting now to see Ayrton Senna come around.
Here he comes.
Here he comes.
The last right, there he is. Yeah, the final right-hander coming onto the front stretch. It's about a quarter of a mile in length. Normally you'd reach speeds about 155, but Ayrton cruising by at an estimated 100. Just coasting, not coasting. There's obviously fuel in there, but third place will go to teammate Nigel Mansell. There he is, coming around the last, let's call it the pit hairpin. Nigel Mansell, who leads the world standings for the Drivers' Championship for 1986, adds 4 more points onto that total, and Mansell will certainly hold on. And fourth place is going to go to the Ferrari of Stefan Johansson, and the Hungarian TV people documenting the top 6 for us very well here, Jackie.
Yes, they've done a very good job. It's their first experience of covering a major motor race of this kind, and we have to take our hats off for them. We compliment them in the way that they've conducted this entire race, the way they've constructed the racetrack. As we look now at the victorious Nelson Piquet of Brazil, and he continues his lap of honor as he goes round there. Sports Center will follow this race, bringing you all the weekend sporting results, so you can hang on to ESPN for, as ever, lots of good sports information. We'll be back for more in just a moment. He stands proudly with a Brazilian flag in his hand as Ayrton Senna is on his right or left, and then of course you have Nigel Mansell, the man who finished third in this Hungarian World Championship round of this World Championship Series. The next event will take place in Austria just next weekend. Let's run through the top 10 as we look at the smiling face of Nelson Piquet. He won the race. Ayrton Senna from Brazil was second. Nigel Mansell from Birmingham in England, now living in the Isle of Man, was third. Stefan Johansson, living in Monaco, from Sweden, was fourth. Johnny Dumfries, the Scotsman, living in England now, was fifth. Martin Brundle, an Englishman, was sixth, picking up a World Championship point for Ken Tyrrell. Patrick Tamby, just out of the points with a Ford power unit, did very well today in the Haas-entered car. Philip Strett was eighth. Alliot from France was ninth, and Jonathan Palmer, the good doctor, was 10th. The World Championship standings, as the national anthems are being played, is Nigel Mansell still leads the World Championship with 55 points. The God Save the Queen is now being played, which of course is the national anthem that is played in honor of the winning team, not the driver. The Senna is lying second in the World Championship now with 48 points. Nelson Piquet is third, jumps him up to 47 points. Alain Prost, no points today, rests with 44. Keke Rosberg rests with 19. Lafitte is way back in 14th, and of course he's out for the season, as also is Arnoux with 14 points. Johansson is fourth today, gets 10 points in total, and Alboreto and Berger are down there with 6 points each, making up that top 10. In the Constructors' World Championship, Williams have taken a giant lead as the Prime Minister of Hungary presents the trophy to Nelson Piquet. 102 points in the Williams team for the championship. McLaren are lying second with only 63 points. Lotus with 50 points. Ligier with 28 points. Well, Larry, what do you think?
Well, Jackie, only 3 of the modern drivers have won more than 10 times Formula One races. Alain Prost leads the parade with 23 wins, and that guy right there, Nelson Piquet, now has 16. Alan Jones, maybe on the brink of retirement, is the other one. He has only 12 wins. But the experience that we alluded to, we talked about in the early stages of this race, the reliability of the Williams cars, it is a formidable combination once again here today in Hungary.
Well, we certainly enjoyed being here. I think a man who has enjoyed being here also is John Bisignano, who has worked very well for us and kept us is very well informed down from the pits. John, you're still with us down there.
Jackie, we wouldn't go anywhere without telling you. We're still here. One thing I want to point out is that in 5 days, this entire Formula One circuit has to be ready for qualifying in Austria. Everything has to be moved, packed up, and the cars will be on their way in just a few hours for full race preparation in Austria. Another great sensation in Formula One is how quickly they can get this done. Also, Renault seems to be a bit more competitive, with 3 of the first 6 being Renault-powered cars, and Johnny Dumfries scoring his first Grand Prix points in Formula One. Strange enough, he does not have a ride for next year, with that drive being taken over in Lotus by a Japanese gentleman, along with the Honda deal. Larry and Jackie, back to you.
Well, thank you very much, Sean. As in this capitalist tradition, champagne is sprayed over the crowd of photographers and fans by these first 3 winners. We, of course, have a lot more motor racing for you today. The NASCAR Budweiser race at Watkins Glen is coming up live at 12:30 p.m. Eastern Time, 9:30 Pacific Time. First time in 21 years, the NASCAR Trail for the Winston Cup has come to Watkins Glen, and you're going to see the top runners up there. Dale Earnhardt, the top points winner, is going to be there. Darrell Waltrip, Tim Richmond, of course, along with Richard Petty and Bill Elliott, etc. We're going to be there live on ESPN. Later on in the day, you're going to have the Volvo International, the final with Boris Becker and Ivan Lendl. You've got a great day of sport coming up on ESPN. Well, this is Jackie Stewart, John Vizignana, and very much from the commentary position with me, Larry Nuber, signing off from the Grand Prix of Hungary. This race has been brought to you by Budweiser, Beechwood Age for that clean, crisp taste. This Bud's for you. By the Diners Club from City Corp. Welcome to the club. By BF Goodrich TA Radios, built for you to take on the road. It's goodbye from Hungary.